What's going on, people? It's your boy AjTrainsalot. Welcome back to the channel. Transform with Trainsalot. Educate, empower, and enlighten. Educate out of victimhood and limiting beliefs. Empower into our purpose and potential, and enlighten to our true nature. Tonight, we are looking at an interesting video. I like this guy's videos. This is students try to explain why America is systemically racist. Systemically, systematically, whatever you want to call it. Apparently, they're two different things. And I like this because for a number of reasons. One, we get to see how lost our society is and will be. We have to remember these are college students. These are the people who are going to be in, the doctors, maybe the professors of their schools later on, and they're going to be propagating the same nonsense and non-logical arguments and just false beliefs all over. And I think things like this, content like this, is very, very interesting. So we're gonna find out if America is systemically racist. Oh, and by the way, if you want this silky smooth kimono, you feel me, you can get it linked in the description. monomushroomhoney.myshopify.com.
America's racist. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, move. Okay. So now, what are your reasons?
So they both agree. She agrees slightly, and he agrees strongly. Slightly agree. So there's neutral, there's slightly agreement, and then there's full agreement, which makes sense. Okay.
Standing on slightly agree.
Well, I have a lot of friends of color, and seeing the things that they go through versus what I go through. For example, in high school, me and a friend who was black went into a store. We did go in separately and went to separate aisles, and in that store, she had everyone, like 2 employees following her. They didn't.
So, already, she had everyone, 2 employees. So 2 employees is apparently everyone in the store following her. And it's just the details, like certain details, like why are they relevant to the story? Like, you went in separate times, you went in different aisles, like what does that have to do with anything?
Know her, we had never been in that store before, and they automatically assumed that she was shoplifting.
How do you know they assume that?
Because they came up to her and they said, "Are you shoplifting?"
And what did she say?
She said no.
See, that was a good question. How do you know? You're assuming what other people are assuming. So everyone's making assumptions, especially with this kind of scenario.
She asked why that they thought that, and then one of them straight told her that she's black, so they just assumed.
Oh, so they were at least honest with her.
They were honest, but it was still, I don't know if I would say racist or prejudice, but it still was going against her skin color.
Okay, so...
What?
And you're saying...
So she doesn't know. She just admitted. She wouldn't say that was prejudice or racist, but you're standing on that. You agree. And the example you gave, like, this is the problem. I'm gonna rewind it.
Racist or prejudice? They were honest, but he's black, so they just assumed.
Oh, so they're...
And can we fault people for going based off of stereotypes, which is, I mean, no one else creates stereotypes for another race or ethnicity but them, right? Like, white people don't create stereotypes for black people and vice versa. It's impossible, right? We can't fault people for living based off their two eyes, what their two eyes perceived in their life and what they've heard in history and such things. And she didn't say what area they were in, so I'd be curious as to that as well. If you're in New York or, you know, any concentrated city where there's the blacks, you're gonna have a certain kind of activity, and unfortunately we have some negative stereotypes, but we can't fault people for living based on those stereotypes, or when they encounter someone of a certain ethnicity, the stereotypical reaction per se kicks in. It's I mean, it's a natural, it's the way of nature. You can't. And then the prompt, this is also my issue. She agrees with the prompt instead of standing in the middle, right, where you can go either or. So she's tilting towards America. Yes, America is racist. Whether she slightly agrees or strongly, her answer is yes. And the scenario that she brought forth, she even said, well, I don't know if I wouldn't call it racist or whatever. So why did you say yes to the question? It's like people do not think before they answer. They just want to go with the most accepted answer. Like, oh, duh, America's racist, duh. But you can't even give a proper example as to how.
At least honest with her.
They were honest, but it was still, I don't know if I would say racist or prejudice, but it still was going against her skin color.
Ridiculous. Prejudice, or so it wasn't prejudice or racist. It was going against her skin color, which is fair. Right? Maybe that store has had break-ins and theft from black people in the past. Are you going to fault them for conducting themselves accordingly? Of course not, especially not a business.
Okay, so, and you're saying that's not a one-off, that's like a common thing?
I've seen a lot of it. I'm from a smaller town in southern Oregon, and they're just the things that are said, and people back it up by the fact like, oh, it's America, like we have freedom of speech, and that often that freedom of speech gets mixed up in, I mean, you do have freedom of speech, but a lot of times people will use that freedom of speech in order to use hate speech.
Okay. Do you agree with everything she said? I mean, I know you don't know her friend of.
Man, college kids, they use all types of buzzwords and and propaganda vocabulary. It's really fascinating. And she said, I've seen a lot of it. You just named the most arbitrary situation. A store. And that says America is systemically racist. Give me a break.
Obviously, but do you agree with the sentiment?
Basically, yeah.
Okay, so why are you on the strongly agree line?
Because I believe in the systemic inequalities that exist in the U.S.
Okay, so that's different from what you said. So he mentioned the word systemic.
Yes.
So do you think there are systemic inequalities?
I do. I don't know. I feel like I haven't done enough research to really.
That's fair.
Yeah, I might believe in it.
So on one hand, you need research, but on one hand, you've seen a lot of it. Okay.
But I don't have the facts to back up what I, like, in order to get into a conversation about it.
So you're saying it's more on an individual basis, and the gentleman on the strong agree, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it seems to me that he's saying it's more of a system-wide thing. Is that right?
Sure. Yeah.
I think it's really hard for me to speak on it being a white person, just because I only see what happens in my group, I never lived through the oppression or the racism or any of that. But on top of that,
This is crazy. So why do you agree? If you're saying you don't have enough research, lived experience, and because you're not you're not a black person, foundational black American, why did you agree in the first place? This is my issue. People do not think. And that's partially what my mission and goal behind all this is to do, is to get you to use your God-given gifts, right, and faculties, and think through things. Use deduction, logic, and reasoning.
I feel like America is based in racist ideals, and if you look at who the land is stolen from.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong, but every single thing you said to me indicates that you should be on the agree line.
I didn't choose the agree line just because I was nervous and I didn't know. I didn't even.
Well, what do you think is true? You should stand on the line you think is true.
Yes.
So I'm not telling you to move.
No, yeah.
But what do you think is true?
I do think America is racist, yes.
Okay, so then why don't you move? Okay.
To do with it.
She did all that talking and then say not one, like, girl, why is it racist? Like, I'm still waiting for that part, though. And if you don't have enough experience, then she stepped even further.
I think it more has to do with intensity of decision making. So
What do you mean?
So all of these are agree. It's just the intensity at which you would agree.
How about instead of intensity, confidence level, how confident one is? Is that fair?
Sure. I mean,
Now, that was a good distinction, this gentleman. I think his name was Peter. Yeah, Peter. Insert last name. Yeah, confidence. I mean, see, this is like college kids always try to seem smart. Yeah, I think it's the degree in which you agree. Obviously, you don't think he knew that when he set it up. And then he made the distinction. Well, it's really based on your confidence level. And it's funny how the woman, she slightly agreed. She gave a poor example. And now she moved further into agreement that America is racist without any logical anything. Just straight up feelings. And she said she's seen a lot of it, but on one hand, she didn't do enough research.
Evidence which creates intensity.
Okay, all right, fine. So
Wait, what is it?
Evidence which creates intensity.
confident one is. Is that fair?
Sure. I mean, confidence which creates intensity.
Okay, all right, fine. So you're on strongly agree because you're
Right, like who cares? Like, why was that a like? Who cares?
intense. You intensely feel. Was the word feel? I don't want to put words in your mouth. Is it think? Is it what is it?
I mean, all the above. It's not a thing that I directly experience. I mean, obviously, as a white guy, I don't really experience racism on the day-to-day.
Now, see, this is interesting. He said, obviously, as a white guy. And then he said they both of them brought up, well, I haven't directly experienced it. We're not, why is that have to become a part of the hypothesis: is America racist? Well, I haven't experienced it myself, so I don't really know. Like, that's not the. It's either yes or no. Do you agree or not? Why or why not? Like, what is your experience? And that's also something to take into account. If you never experienced it, how do you know what something is? Right? Like, if they've never experienced racism, right? How do you know that the black girl felt like that, like she was being a victim of racism, right? You're assuming that. You're assuming that because your friend is black and she's being watched in the store, excuse me, that it's something of racism. You're assuming that. And it's the fortune of the onlooker to have to make an assertion.
Quite in the same way.
So-
As a minority person, but
Oh, now not
So
in the
you
same
said
way.
The word systemic before. What is that the word used, or is this system? System. What does that word mean?
I mean, it's the violence inherent within the system, to quote Monty Python.
So, like, okay.
Yo, I'm out. He quoting. Is Monty Python even a real person? He's quoting a series of movies for his ideological perspective. That's insane.
Give me an example of a law currently on the books. Let me repeat that. Give me an example of a law currently on the books that's racist.
It doesn't have to do with laws. It has to do with entrenched social movements.
Give me an example of something currently, like, I'm not exactly sure what that means, but if it's systemic, to me, and maybe it's just my understanding, it would mean that there's something in the system. Like, that's the definition of systemic.
Like laws.
Well, that's what when I hear systemic, it's the first thing I think of.
Laws are one of the very few things that govern our behavior. Or one of the many things, rather.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not just laws that determine whether we do something or not, and it also doesn't determine what's good in the world. So, like, you could say that it all has to do with laws, but then you're kind of just degrading it to that single point.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Dude, give me an example of a system that's racist.
Is it fair? Because to a degree, laws would reflect. If you're saying something is systemically, and there's no active, and there's no systemic policy in the system, it's just kind of this ethereal mindset that people have. It's like, again, we're getting into the assuming and inference world rather than, real life.
In the United States? Yeah, in America.
A system that's racist. Try to think of a specific.
A system that's racist. You can tell by his body language he is scrounging for some type of. Let's just hear what he's about to come up with.
Take time. You can move, by the way. You can move to the strongly agree. Oh, I thought you were going to move. You're free to move anywhere you want. It's a free country.
Well, I've particularly been studying gender relations at the moment.
Let's try to. I'm happy to do that claim
Well,
next
no,
week.
I know, but it's the same
That's
sort of
crazy.
dichotomy. It's the same sort of power relation in terms of gender as opposed to racism.
Is it okay if we do racist? Because that's only the claim now. We'll talk about gender if you want to write another one on the board, but give me an example of a system of racism that we currently have in the country.
A current system of racism. It's like entrenched social patterns.
And man, this is funny. He got his nails painted, and everything. It just doesn't. Now, entrenched systems. What do you say?
So it's like entrenched social patterns. So
Entrenched social patterns. Wow.
it's not so much laws or government or sort of formalized.
Yeah, we'll forget laws. Just give me a system.
It's more just how people act with each other. So like literally what she's described earlier, this sort of circumstance in which somebody,
Her friends.
yeah, circumstance in which,
Damn, he couldn't even give his own example. He had to go to the weak example that she herself said, I don't know if I would call that racist or whatever. Right? It's like, and social patterns, the way you interact with people have discernment, people have a right to discriminate, and discrimination is not inherently negative. This is the thing too. Discrimination is not inherently negative. We all need discrimination, right? You need discrimination in your health, discrimination in your relationships, discrimination in business. You need all these things. Discrimination is basically filtering through the things you don't want to get the things you do want. And who does not do that? The problem is people like this propagate the idea that discrimination is inherently negative, and if you're discriminating against someone, that means you're racist, a bigot, you're this, you're that. It's like, no, I just want to be around my people. I just want to talk to the people I want to talk to because I relate to them more. Whatever the reason is, which we as individuals don't have to explain because we have our preferences, right? Discrimination is very much necessary. Discrimination and discernment.
which somebody was supposed to have done something because of their skin color, because of internal assumptions that we have about particular people. That's the systemic.
How is that systems in terms of just people, maybe there were two just neo-Nazis or just weird, creepy people or just, I mean, how is that a system?
Because we're in a system. Humans are systemic. So people cause
Boy, what?
systems, and systems cause people. You can't just look at it from the system causing people, but the people causing systems.
Yo, this is crazy right here. I'm sure he sounds intelligent to somebody. Even the girl listening to him right here, she knows like, this guy's making us look terrible.
Same case of a black person going in a store and nobody approached them. The same argument that you just could be used to say that there's a system in place that does not discriminate against. So it would seem to be more than the behavior of people. So a system is a very specific claim. You're saying it's a system. Give me an example of a system.
She's describing one from the outside.
So first I do want to say that I do feel like this is I know a lot of people try to say factually America's racist. In my opinion, I do think the phrase America's racist is an opinion. I don't know if that stems from me not liking conflict.
Wow, what an astute observation she just had. That's probably the only intelligent thing she said since she walked on those white lines.
I just want to say that stems from me not liking America's racist is an opinion. I don't know if that stems from me not liking conflict. But I just want to say first that this is my opinion. I don't have the factual evidence to back it up and say it's a fact.
Okay, let's pause on that. So when I say America's racist, the claim is that true? Do you agree that that's true?
I do agree that it's true, yes.
Okay, so we're not talking about an opinion, we're talking about something that's a claim that hooks to reality in a lawful way.
Okay. So, and again, this is just what I have been a part of. I have a friend who is Hispanic, and I had gotten into a verbal fight with someone. I think this was last year.
Is this an example of a system?
System, yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah. I am going to bring up, and I don't know if it's racist or if it's just prejudice,
Okay.
but the police force in Eugene, just because, actually I think it was Springfield. I believe it was Springfield. We were in that area. And I had gotten into a verbal fight with someone who was catcalling. There was something thrown.
Catcalling you?
Yes, someone, there was things that had been thrown. It was on the street and the police were called. Right away, my friend, who was Hispanic, tried to explain to them what was happening, and they assumed, again, that she was the one who had started the fight. They told her to shut up. They told her to be quiet.
How do you know that it was because of her skin color? What did they tell you? Like your friend?
Exactly. Like, did they say shut up? Did they say shut up, Mexican? It's like, let the police do their job. Like, that's why they told her to shut up. Like, let us do what we're here to do.
And your other friend, you're black, they told her. How do you know it's because of her skin color?
Again, I can't specifically.
Just say I don't. Just say you don't. Why are you trying to? It's so annoying. Like, why are you trying to propagate this idea then? Like, just say I don't know. And you're right. I'm assuming that. I'm making inferences based on zero logic.
Say that they did it because of her skin color, but they did tell her straight up, we know you started this fight. They said that directly to her. The other person was white, I was white. It's just kind of the feeling you got, and also everything that had been going on already.
The feeling. She said it was the feeling you got, which is to say it was the feeling that I got and my other white girlfriend got. Whoa, Samantha, look what they just said to our Latin friend, our Latina friend. Look what they just said to Serena. Like, it's a feeling.
Springfield police.
So you're saying that there's a culture within the police department. Is that what you mean by system culture?
It can be. So, like, culture, or the way we act, sort of determines what the system is or what laws are, which you seem to be hung up on. Like the.
No, I threw no laws out the window. I'm just trying to figure out what the definition of a system is.
You also can't throw it out. It's just a matter of.
Okay, we'll bracket it, but I'm trying to figure out when someone says a systemic thing. She did not say that. You said that. I'm trying to figure out what you mean by that because I am not clear.
Well, I mean, she brought up, for example, the police. You know, it's not that they have laws that direct them to be racist. It's that internally, somehow, people are racist.
Somehow.
Which determines.
Somehow, some way. Somehow, someday. I just know these cops are racist.
Behavior, which determines behavior in any given circumstance. Like, if the police stops a white person, they're less likely to arrest them than with a black person. So it's, you might call it even an individual, but it's, everybody does it.
Okay, so I'm trying to figure out. So let's say that we have a police force in whatever city she's from. I can't remember where she said someplace in Oregon. Okay, but let's just pretend that it's some weird place that nobody ever goes to that has a population of like 10,000. And let's say that every single person who applies to the police force there is some kind of a closeted Klansman. So they're a member of the Klan, but they don't let anybody know they're a member of the Klan. Just run with me with the thought experiment. I'm trying to figure out what the word system means. And they all go and decide that they're going to become police officers, they go to training, they all become cops. Is it then fair to say, is that what you mean by the system being racist? It's populated by people who hold racist. I'm trying to figure out what the word means.
Okay, so it's populated by people who are racist, yes.
And that's a good formulation to try to find And notice we're almost halfway through the video, and he's been trying to establish a baseline of understanding. Well, what do you mean? What exactly do you mean? So that both of us have an understanding of what you're actually saying when you strongly agree, right? And this is the fellow who strongly agrees. But anyway, coming to that common ground of what do you mean by systemic exactly?
Okay, but also they're not exceptional. Like they're not members of the KKK. They're just people.
Okay.
And people are generally Americans, specifically are racist because what your little America is racist. Better question is Americans are racist.
Okay, yeah, but that's a different claim.
It's the same claim. America is constituted of its parts, which is Americans.
I'm 100% happy to do the gender thing next, and Americans are racist, but you stood on the strongly agree line. So you must strongly agree, unless you stood on the wrong line. You can you're free to move to agree or anywhere.
Yeah, and what he just said it was the same. I like how he completely avoided what he was saying, but it is essentially this. If you're saying America is made up of its constituents of Americans, what's the difference of saying America is racist and Americans are racist? Again, this is like college logic, like talking in roundabout ways because they're not actually intelligent.
Like one, I'm trying to, and I don't mean to linger on this necessarily. I think it's so important to understand what you mean when you say it's a system.
Okay. All right. It's a system.
That's why I was just saying an example. Like, okay, so let's say they're not KKK.
Brody is lost. Oh my goodness, he's just so lost.
They have this, they harboring some animus against black people, and they all decide to become cops. Does that mean that the system is acting against black people, or individuals within the system? Because that's an extremely crucial distinction.
Okay, so individual.
Peter, I agree. It is an extremely important distinction.
People within the system that are not exceptional. So they constitute the system. So like, it's not members of the KKK that are joining the police because they're racist or whatever.
They constitute the personnel who are members of the system, but they are not the system.
Yeah, they are. So like, anybody who is a police officer is a small, very small, infinitesimally small part of a larger whole. But
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
so,
I agree.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So we're on the same page now. Translate to me how that makes the system racist.
Because people make up the system. So people make the system. The laws. Literally any like.
Okay. So a part of the system is racist. And this we don't have to use these. I'm just throwing that in. A part of that system.
Yeah, people don't make the system. The government makes the systems, and people get employed by the systems, and that's why you hear a lot of, "Oh, I'm just doing my job. I'm just doing my job, bro. Can you just make it easy? I'm just doing my job." No, you're a representation of something.
Is racist, but that doesn't mean that the personnel is. But that doesn't mean that the system itself is.
Well, I think that.
Am I missing something?
No,
I probably
I
missing.
don't think you're missing anything. This is also this is another opinion I believe. For me, I believe that there's a difference between the system that's been created and what the system was based on. So, like the idea that came before the creation of the system.
Right, and I think what he's saying is that people participate in a culture.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I honestly think that the system is racist only because within those.
Well, how come you don't over there then?
Just because I do think, for me, I've only seen it situational. I haven't seen the bigger picture. I haven't been hounded or oppressed or just like nothing's happened to me. I've only seen it like through my eyes from someone else being. I just feel like.
I got that.
I feel like.
Right, like I said earlier, she's just been an observer. She's been fortunate enough to have just been an observer of these things. And if it's situational, is that racism, or is it just, again, people having discernment and discriminating, which we've spoken about.
I need more facts and more to know more what to say before I would be able to.
You need more knowledge. You need to hit them books, don't you?
To go to strongly agree.
Okay, that's fair. No, that's the most reasonable thing I've ever. Okay, so what would it take you to move from strongly agree to agree? What would you have to learn, figure out here? Oh, so sorry about that. What would it take for you to move from strongly agree to agree?
I don't think I would.
So what evidence would you have to hear? What reason would you have to hear? What argument would you have to see to persuade you?
I see no point in being in agree or slightly agree. I am either going to be in strongly agree or strongly disagree.
I followed you up until the very end. Why? I was right up. I tracked the whole thing you said up until the why.
Well, this guy is trying so hard to be intellectual. It's crazy. It's actually crazy.
If somebody convinced me that America is not racist, then I would be in strongly disagree. I would not. There's no gradient to me.
What if someone convinced you
But it's weird because you strongly agree, but you haven't formulated a coherent, logical reasoning as to why it is racist. So it's weird that you strongly agree. And I somewhat understand what he's saying. There's no gradient. It's either yes or no. That's fair. And I think it goes back to the gentleman's point of confidence. Like it's strongly. You feel strong about it. That means you should be able to name situation after situation, scenario after scenario. That means you should be able to pop, not refer to someone you don't even know, someone's weak point about walking in a store.
said that there are a non-trivial number of people harboring racist attitudes, and that I could show you examples of redlining and lack of equity and equitable distribution in schools and poor people in black neighborhoods going to worse schools. Like what if I could show you statistics of black people being pulled over by the police but disproportionate rates? Yeah, I mean.
Yeah. And we all know that, I hope, the statistics of it.
But I just don't understand. So then what evidence would it take you to move to strongly disagree? What would you have to be shown?
That America is not racist.
Okay, what would that look like? What data set would that look like?
I have no idea, because I don't agree with it. Like, how would I know? Or else I would be over there.
Well,
See, this is a logical fallacy. He said, how would I know, or else I would be over there? Well, you should know the opposing side of your argument if you strongly agree with something, or else why would you strongly agree with it if you can't argue against it or for it, which he hasn't done. He hasn't argued his point coherently or logically or through a reasonable formula of deduction. He's saying, why would I know statistics about why America might not be racist? Well, you should, or else you shouldn't be standing on the opposing end of that argument. I hope that makes sense to you guys.
Wouldn't you have to know the conditions under which your belief could be false to justify your confidence in the belief?
Exactly. That was a beautiful... I'm going to rewind that.
To know the conditions under which your belief could be false to justify your confidence?
The conditions in which your belief could be false. And this is an important aspect of thinking. You shouldn't believe in something unless you've explored the other side of the coin, right? It wouldn't make sense to be a Christian, right, unless you can argue, well, what about life outside of the scriptures or even Islam? What about life outside of the Quran? What about life outside of these things? That's going to strengthen your argument for the religion. That's going to strengthen your argument for the sacred text, because you know you can argue the other side of it.
I
could be false.
See, this guy he's dishonest. You can't have a logical, reasonable discussion with someone like him because at this point in time, look how long he just paused. He knows he's wrong. Or at least his reasoning up to this point has been
Could
wrong.
be false.
And he's looking up. Like, just like...
I mean, I suppose you are right. I would have to be convinced in some way that that statistically and/or.
But see, here's the thing. He just acknowledged, he said, I suppose you're right. No, he's right. He just acknowledged that his reasoning could be false in as much as he hasn't explored the other side. Right? So if that's the case, what would be the next step? To look into it, not just ask people to give you statistics, reasonings, studies, right? To look into it and combine what you search for with your lived experience and perception and try to tie the two together instead of holding on to this belief that you can't even rationalize. It's crazy. It's madness. Stop the madness.
Experienced empirically.
Empirically.
I mean, that's just like extending out the America is not racist statement.
Or maybe just that it's not as racist as you thought. Like, what evidence would you have to think that it's not as racist as you thought to move you to the agree line?
I don't know, that a lot of people don't experience racism on the day-to-day, for example.
A lot of people, or the majority of people, or some people? Like, a lot meaning like 25? I don't know.
Well, more people than I've heard. I don't know. I guess if it's a gradient, which I'm still not convinced it is, it's just is or is not, to me, really, because of its systemic nature.
Systemic, there we go, systemic. Yeah. Do you have anything to add before we
If they use that word again, I can't even mess with you.
I try my hardest not to think in black and white, so I feel like we're very different.
You and the guy.
Yes, yeah. I just feel like, even though I don't know much, I feel like because I don't know much, I try to understand both sides. And I do understand the fact that people don't see a lot of racism if they're predominantly in a white background, like culture, like city especially. And so I don't go...
No, didn't at the beginning of the video, she said, oh, I've seen a lot of it. But then here she is closer in agreement with this statement. And she just said, oh, you can't if you haven't seen a lot of it.
If they're predominantly in a white background, like culture, like city especially, and so I don't go straight to trying to attack them for what they don't know, and I try to listen to what their views are. But I do think that America is racist. And one thing I wanted to say last time, just really quickly, is that especially with the police force, what we were talking about, I think that the system itself is racist within the fact that even though there are few, sometimes more, but I'm going to say few for now, that have done racist things, think racist.
What are you talking about, police or general citizens?
Right now, police. Okay. Even and it's been proven that there have been people have been fired for it, which I think is a good step in equality, kind of what you're asking him about. You have to know the opposite side of what you argue for. And so I do think that's a good step towards equality. And
what? What does that have to do with equality? But yes, you should know the opposite side of what you're arguing for or against, or else you shouldn't be on a side if you don't know the other side. She said that's a step towards equality. I'm just trying to figure out what that has to do.
The point of America is kind of not as racist as it was before. We obviously don't do lynchings, we don't do all these things, but I do feel like that's the bare minimum. But with the police force, what I was saying, even if there's only a few people who have these racist ideologies, the system as a whole and this was more, I feel like more people are cracking down on it, but as a whole, if you look at 2016, 17, their system backed them up.
Okay, last question. Two quick ones. Is there anything it would take for you to move to one?
What went on in 2016 and 2017? Yeah, I don't know. Is it Black Lives Matter stuff? And the system backed them up. Like, one thing I want to know, the government protects the people in the government. For instance, like, DA, domestic, is somewhat frequent, some might say rampant, in the military, right? And if your spouse is a civilian, it's harder for the civilian to actually get justice because that person is a service member. That is to say, the government is going to protect their investment. So yes, if you're a cop and you do an outrageous act, yeah, you're not going to get the same punishment. And rightly so, if you think about it. You're not going to get the same punishment as a regular civilian who hasn't dedicated their life to service and sees their family way less and has way less free time and recreational time. Yeah, you're not going to get the same treatment, right? Because you shouldn't. The same way veterans, we get free meals here and there every year on a day, right? That's because we've made sacrifices. But anyway, yeah, the government is going to protect their investment. That doesn't mean it's racist, or it just means the government function as the government. And it's always been, increasingly in the years, some might say more and more corrupt and shrouded in dishonesty, but that's where we are.
Anything other? You're happy with where you are?
I'm pretty happy with where I am. I do know that there are more facts, there's evidence that
Sure.
definitely cause me to go to slightly agree. I don't think I would go to disagree. I don't think I would go that far just because I feel like we have a long way to go before we can say that we're not racist.
Cool. And the last question, something you made me think about the police and racism in the police force. If you were to guess,
How do we have a long way to go if the only scenario you can bring up is when you walked into a store with your black friend, not even walked in, you walked in different times, and then they assumed your black friend was a thief? How does that constitute having a long way to go before you can disagree with the statement that America is racist?
about the police and racism in the police force, if you were to guess, you're not an expert, I'm not an expert, I'm not a cop, but if you were to take a guess of how many black men were killed by the police, say, last year, roughly what number would you guess? Roughly. Again, you're not an expert, just take a guess.
Ooh,
So if you meant unarmed.
This is just across America.
Yeah.
12 months. Okay, I would say probably in the high hundreds. Maybe
Okay.
around 8. I just
800?
know. Yeah, I just know that there's a lot that we don't. Even though we do have technology and the internet and stuff, I feel like there's a lot that.
Okay, no, I'm not an expert, you're an expert, I'm just trying to get, do you want to take,
Or I'm not an expert either, but 800 in a year by the police, either armed or unarmed, is like, that shows you where her perception of racism is. It's like, you think damn near thousands of I don't know if he said black men, but thousands of black people are dying from just the police every year?
so with that, or do you want to do, we can end now, because I'm going to do another claim.
I imagine it's enough, as in disproportional.
What, you imagine it's one, I'm sorry?
Disproportional.
Disproportionate. I'm telling you, this country is in danger. This country is in danger, son. Like all these college kids walking around with all these degrees, thinking it's actual wisdom, and they truly believe they know things, but yet they can't explain it in a practical and easily digestible formula, or even give reasonable logical explanations as to their opinions.
Between killing black people versus white people. So,
Like, do you want to throw a number out there? She gave me 800. You think it's true?
It's enough, Peter. It's disproportional. Disproportional is a word, but he's using it in the wrong context, which he's in college.
We're too high or about right?
I have no number. I don't know.
All right. Well,
And he gave up. He's given up. He has given up, ladies and gentlemen. He's been irrationally wiped out. He's like, I'm tired of trying to think and be rational for my beliefs. Like, just know it's enough, and the racism is there.
I appreciate that. Oh, one more quick question. What if I were to show you that number, evidence to your satisfaction and his satisfaction, that number were 22,500? Would you be willing to move to the strongly agree?
I would definitely think about it. I would want to do more research. I feel like there's more things that go into, because I will say there are times when people are genuinely dangerous. The cops do have to shoot or do something.
But 22,000. I'm not saying I have that number. I'm just trying. If I showed you that number was 22,500, would you be willing to move to the strongly agree?
I would, because I do think that's wrong. I do think a lot of times police use their force when it's not necessary, and they do have, some of them have that racist ideology.
Okay, so let me ask you another question. What if I were to show you that number was close?
See, now that's a good point. He says, if I can show you statistics, surveys that says, well, it's actually an extreme number, are you willing to move and shift your opinion on this subject? That's reasonable. Whereas this gentleman, he's just like, even if you did, I'm not moving because it's not enough and it doesn't fit with my worldview.
Was under 20, closer to 10, 12. Would you move to the slightly agree?
I would probably move to the slightly agree, but then again, with the same number you gave out last time, I'd want to look more into it.
To your satisfaction, and to the NAACPs, and to...
I was also going to say, like, the fact that people of color are a minority, because I have family that have the ideology that, like, America isn't racist, like, these things happen, and I never really bring it up, but I do have the thought in the back of my head.
But yeah, and the fact that cops might escalate situations quickly is, no surprise. Like, we put people on pedestals for some reason. We think because they're a cop or a military service member that they're supposed to be of a certain temperate, discipline, and character, when really, let me tell you, you're hearing it here first, that is absolutely not the case. Okay? Even teachers, like, you'd be surprised what teachers do after work. Shit, damn near during. But yeah, I mean, we're all humans, and it's really up to your character and how serious you take what you're doing. You can't teach certain characteristics. They just have to be in you. And to assume, right, to presume, and I'm not saying this is the way it should be, this is the way it is, to assume that, because someone's a cop, they should, they're not going to be scared if they see a big black dude or, just anyone bigger than them, right? Even though, we think they should have some sort of training and be confident in their abilities to de-escalate situations. Because that should be the case doesn't mean that it is. And yeah, unfortunately, cops might escalate force unnecessarily and even You know, even for small traffic stops, they might call. You might see 5 squad cars for a traffic stop. It's like, what is all this? Like, do you really need all this? Don't you you got a tool belt, you got a utility belt with like 10 weapons on you. Like, why do you need 5 other guys with 10 weapons on them? But anyway, say la vie.
Of white people are a majority while people of color are a minority, so I feel like the argument of
But the under 20 thing would convince you, if to your satisfaction, if you looked at all the data, we got your professors, experts, and then I have to wrap it up. You'd go to slightly agree?
I don't think I would actually, no.
You wouldn't go to slightly agree? Interesting. Okay, well, thank you for your time, both of you.
Just to catch up, he asked her, how many black men or black people do you think are killed every year by the police? She said high hundreds, 8, 9. He said, well, what if I showed you that number was 22,500? Would you move to strongly agree? She said, yeah, because that's a lot. And then he just asked her, well, what if it was closer to 5 or 10? Would you move to slightly agree? And she said no. And this is an interesting concept about humans. Even when we're shown evidence against what we believe, because we're so comfortable in that belief, and it takes a certain mental plasticity to be able to expand your thinking and let go of this fundamental belief that you have. Though it may be false, right? It's so hard to let go of it. And even if you see what you believe on paper is false, like, whoa. She basically said, yeah, I'm not gonna change what I think, even though my perception of racism. Now, she said 800 a year, right? Minimum. But if it was actually 20, 820, those are two radically different numbers. Even if it was 20 people, you wouldn't slightly change your opinion on racism. You don't want to change your opinion, even though you can't back it up and it's been shown to be radically false.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, 14.
Yeah,
He says, so it's actually 14. This video is about 2 years ago, pretty recent, in terms of the subject, right? So it's 14 people, black men, black people being killed, 14 a year. He says it's about proportions. If we're the minority, 14 is still a small number. Whereas if it was white people, if it was 100, speaking relatively, right, that would still be a small percentage. And it wouldn't hold for an argument of, America's racist against whites, right? Because the proportions are the same. This character is just trying to be, or this guy is so dumb.
So here's the next one. Here.
And he has his nails painted. Like, is that total, or like, you already gave up? Like, shut up. We're at the end of the video. Like, don't try to be big brain now.
The actual data. Black people are roughed up more than white people once they're in custody. Black people are roughed up by black police officers as much as they are by white police officers. Black people are roughly equal basis. Correct. Black people as much as they are by white police officers. Black people are roughly equal basis. Correct.
He said, I gotta slow it down. He said black people are something racism. What the?
Up more than white people once they're in custody. Black people are roughed up by black police officers as much as they are by white police officers.
yes, black people are also capable of racism.
Correct.
He said black people are also capable of racism. Astounding.
black people are shot at disproportionate rates under the rates at which police officers shoot white people. There have been under 20 shootings of black police, and that's with like young black men launching themselves at officers. I mean, that's the whole thing. So the number is closer to 14. Some people you ask it's 10, some people you ask it's 18, but everybody you would ask would say it's under 20.
Yeah.
Don't you agree that with white people being a majority, there are more, like there's more people, and so.
This is interesting. Even with the number, right now they're attempting to shift the goalposts, shift the argument, and say, well, there's just more white people. So even if 14, 18 black people are killed a year, which is drastically different than what I thought, right? I'm still gonna finagle my way into and try to rationalize my belief.
Okay, let me throw this.
I'm
Let me throw this out to you before we go. I don't think literally any sane person would disagree that the police have. If you look at the data for murders, this is a huge thing, and I have to do another crop of people. The people who are arrested and they convict murders more are men. Like, we know that. The data is. No sane person could disagree with that.
Yeah.
Literally nobody. But nobody says the police are discriminatory or biased against men. The reason that the police have police just have more contact with black people, and then there are consequences that follow from that. So it's just a question of like looking and figuring out what the data is.
Sheesh. That was a very meaningful point. Very meaningful. He's saying, first he said because men are more apt, obviously, for violence and rebellion. We commit more crimes, therefore we're disproportionately arrested, as opposed to women, right? But that doesn't mean police are biased against men because we're committing the crimes. So similarly, you're saying if black people are committing crimes and speeding, doing this, that, and the third, then yeah, you're gonna be arrested more. It doesn't matter about the proportions.
Because they have more contact with black.
There's the question. Now that could be the systemic part. It could be any one of a number of reasons, but you have to have a conversation about it. Anyway, I hope you found that helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
On which part about it?
Just the American races,
Yeah, I would do that at the end of the day. I can't give that away because we're gonna do other. And if one of the lessons I've learned, I know I gotta wrap it up. One of the lessons I've learned is if I tell people what I've said, that biases them to where they'll stand.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna do one more, huh?
It is posting this anywhere?
Yeah, we'll probably post these to YouTube or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would it just be like under America, or would it?
Yeah, well, probably that will be the claim. All right, thanks.
Well, folks, thanks for watching another extremely insightful video. Yeah, let me know what you think. Is America racist? Is America systemically racist? Is America, inherently racist, like the young lady said, because of the land that it's on, the people it was stolen from, and what happened in its inception? Yeah, I'd be more than willing to hear your comments. Leave a comment below, like, subscribe. Once again, if you want this silky robe, okay, True Comfort, right? You can get it linked in the description of this video, monomushroom.myshopify.com. You can also get my book, Transformation Through Fitness, Identifying Success Principles in Exercise, Nutrition, Dieting, Fitness, just in general, that apply to other aspects of life. All right, this has been a wonderful evening See you all soon.